So, we have some news. I got a job offer in another city, and we will be moving there in a few weeks.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about Daniel's living situation.
What about Daniel? We were thinking that it might be better for her to stay with her grandma while we get settled in the new city. It's closer to her college, and we don't want to disrupt her studies. You want her to stay with me? Wait, what? I don't want to stay with grandma.
Daniel, we know it's not ideal, but it's only temporary. We'll come to visit you as often as we can.
Fine, I'll stay here, but I want a monthly allowance of $5,000. Excuse me? That's an unreasonable amount, Daniel. We can't afford that. Well, you should have thought of that before you decided to move away and leave me with grandma. Ariana, I have to say, I'm disappointed in you. You're not being a good stepmother to Danielle. Excuse me, Donna? $5,000 a month is just not feasible. We can help with tuitions and other expenses, but that's it. Of course, you'll be treating me like trash because I'm not your real daughter. That's not true, Daniel. We love you and care for you, but we have to make responsible decisions for our family. Well, I think you're making a big mistake, Ariana. You're being a terrible stepmom. What? That's unfair. Jim, don't you have something to say about this?
Well, I don't want to participate in this. You women should work it out between yourself.
My name is Ariana, and I'm a woman in my 50s. A few years ago, I lost my husband to cancer, and it was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. But as time passed, I began to feel like it was time to move on and start a new chapter. Remarrying was a big step for me, and it took a lot of courage to take that leap. But I knew that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life alone, and I was hopeful that there was someone out there who would be a good match for me. And then I met Jim. From the moment we met, I knew that he was different. He was gentle and kind, and he had a way of making me feel like everything was going to be okay. We started dating, and before I knew it, we were talking about getting married. It wasn't an easy decision, of course. I had been married before, and I knew that there were no guarantees in life. But Jim was patient and understanding, and he gave me the space and time I needed to make up my mind. He took care of me very well and always respected the memory of my first husband. The only thing that I wasn't quite used to about him was that he could be quite passive from time to time. But nobody's perfect, so I decided to overlook that and marry him. Jim had a daughter called Danielle. She was in her early 20s. Her mom had left them when she was young, and I knew that was a tough situation for her. So I always tried my best to care for her and be a supportive stepmom. It wasn't always easy to build a relationship with her, but I was determined to be there for her whenever she needed me. Shortly after Jim and I got married, I lost my job due to downsizing of the company I was working for. It was a tough time for both of us, and we knew that we had to make some changes to get through. We made the tough decision to move in with Jim's mom, Donna, for a while until we could get back on our feet. Moving in with Donna was a big adjustment for all of us. We had to get used to living in a smaller space and being around each other all the time. Unfortunately, things didn't go as smoothly as we had hoped. Living with Donna and Daniel started to become difficult. Donna would always complain about how she wanted nicer clothes and a bigger living space. She would constantly make comments about how we were cramping her style, and it made me feel like we were a burden to her. It was clear that she wasn't happy about the situation and it put a lot of strain on our relationship. On top of that, I started noticing that money was going missing from my purse. At first, I thought it was just a mistake or that I had misplaced it somewhere. But then it started happening more frequently, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. One day, I caught Danielle red handed, and it was a difficult conversation to have. I tried to approach it calmly and figure out why she felt like she needed to steal from me, but it didn't go as smoothly as I had hoped. All of these issues started to take a toll on me, and I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells around Donna and Danielle, and it was starting to affect my relationship with Jim. I started feeling like Donna and Danielle were ganging up on me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. One day, I overheard Donna telling Danielle that if it wasn't for me losing my job, they could have lived in a much better and bigger house. Hearing that hurt me deeply, and I didn't know how to react. I decided to bring it up with Jim, who's usually very supportive and understanding. However, he had been really busy with work, and it was hard to find a time when we could sit down and talk about things. When I finally brought up the issue with him, he promised to deal with it. And I was comforted for a short while. But weeks went by, and he still hadn't done anything. I felt like he wasn't taking my concerns seriously, and it only added to my frustration and stress. I started feeling like I was trapped and miserable, and it was affecting every aspect of my life. I knew that something had to change, but I didn't know how to make that happen. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I received some good news. I got a new job. This job paid even better than my previous one, and I was ecstatic about it. However, there was a catch. We would have to move to a different city. This news was both exciting and terrifying for me. On one hand, it was a great opportunity for me to start fresh and leave all the drama behind. On the other hand, it meant leaving all of these family problems unresolved. Luckily, Jim was open with the idea of moving. I started the apartment hunt, and it was a bit overwhelming at first. As we were planning the move, another issue came up: what to do with Daniel. We sat Donna and Daniel down to talk with them through everything. So, we have some news. I got a job offer in another city, and we will be moving there in a few weeks.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about Daniel's living situation.
What about Daniel? We were thinking that it might be better for her to stay with her grandma while we get settled in the new city. It's closer to her college, and we don't want to disrupt her studies.
You want her to stay with me? Wait, what? I don't want to stay with grandma. Daniel, we know it's not ideal, but it's only temporary. We'll come visit you as often as we can.
Fine, I'll stay here, but I want a monthly allowance of $5,000. Excuse me? That's an unreasonable amount, Daniel. We can't afford that.
Well, you should have thought of that before you decided to move away and leave me with grandma.
Ariana, I have to say, I'm disappointed in you. You're not being a good stepmother to Daniel. Excuse me, Donna. $5,000 is just not feasible. We can help with tuitions and other expenses, but that's it.
Of course, you'll be treating me like trash because I'm not your real daughter.
That's not true, Daniel. We love you and care for you, but we have to make responsible decisions for our family.
Well, I think you're making a big mistake, Ariana. You're being a terrible stepmom.
What? That's unfair. Jim, don't you have anything to say about this?
Well, I don't want to participate in this. You women should work it out between yourselves.
This was when I realized that I was all alone. Jim had never stood up for me when I needed him to, despite how caring and supportive he always seemed. I was so disappointed, but there was nothing I could do about it. I could only stood my ground and kept saying no to Daniel's request. On top of that, Donna had been really tough on me. She was constantly passive aggressive to me and kept telling me that I was not doing enough for my stepdaughter. I thought no matter what happened, it could not get worse from here. However, a few days later, I was shocked to find out that almost all of my salary for the month was gone. I immediately checked my account to see what had happened and was horrified to discover that someone had used my credit card to make unauthorized purchases. I immediately thought of Danielle, who had previously stolen cash from my purse. To my surprise, she admitted to doing it the moment I asked her. It was like she had no shame, and she thought she was entitled to all of my money. I was devastated and felt so betrayed. I couldn't believe that someone I cared for could do something so deceitful. I talked to Jim about it, hoping that he would help me figure out a solution, but he promised to fix it and then did nothing. I was left to deal with the aftermath of Daniel's action on my own. I had to contact the bank, cancel my credit card, and file a report. It was a stressful and time consuming process that I never thought I would have to go through. It also put a strain on my relationship with Jim. I couldn't understand why he wasn't taking the situation more seriously or doing more to help me. Meanwhile, Donna was constantly blaming me for not being a good mom to Daniel and told me that I was only overreacting. After that, I was constantly stressed out. So I decided to separate from Jim for a while and move to my sister's place to clear my head and refocus on my career. Just a few days later, I received a series of texts from Donna. She kept texting even though I didn't even know how to respond. How could you leave us like this? We have been through so much together and now you just abandon us? You should be here with us, helping us through everything, especially when you have a nice job now. Instead, you're off doing your own thing and leaving us to fend for ourselves? I can't believe you would be so selfish. We thought you were part of our family, but now it seems like you don't care about us at all. Her messages made me feel guilty and overwhelmed with emotions. I had done everything I could to help them and had always been there for them, so I don't understand why she could talk to me like that. I knew that I had to take care of myself first and that my decision to separate from Jim was the right one. Her words left me feel like she didn't care about me at all. I responded to her message asking her why she couldn't rely on Jim and the support that he could provide. However, her response left me speechless. She told me that Daniel had quit college because they couldn't afford it and that I had the responsibility to provide for my stepdaughter. I didn't know what to say. I had no idea that Daniel had dropped out of college, and I certainly didn't think that it was my responsibility to support her financially. Upset and frustrated, Donna blocked me from her number. The situation became even more complicated when Daniel started showing up at my doorstep asking for money. It was clear that Donna and Jim weren't able to provide for her, and she felt like I should provide for her. As much as I felt bad for her, I knew that I couldn't keep giving her money. It wasn't fair to me, and it wasn't helping Daniel in the long run. I realized that I needed to cut ties with Jim and Donna. The situation was toxic, and it was taking a toll on my mental health. I decided to file for divorce from Jim, hoping that it would be a wake-up call for him and that he would step up and take responsibility for his family. After I filed for divorce, Jim came to my house and demanded that I pay him half of my salary for the next year. He claimed that I had to pay for the time I was staying at his mother's place and that he was entitled to that money. I was taken aback by his request, and I reminded him that I had already helped him out and that he couldn't just demand money from me because he was in a tough spot. However, Jim wasn't willing to back down. He threatened that if I didn't pay up, Donna would call me every day and Daniel will still come to find me. I knew that he wasn't bluffing. Donna and Daniel had already shown me that they were willing to go to great lengths to get what they wanted. I knew that I couldn't keep living in fear and constantly being blackmailed by him and his family. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I pretended to agree with Jim's demands, but I had a plan in mind. I texted Danielle and arranged to meet her one last time. When she came to my house, I intentionally left my credit card on the table in a very visible place. I knew that she would steal it and I was banking on that. I waited for a few days to see if Daniel and Donna would use it to make my purchases. Sure enough, they went on a shopping spree, buying clothes and bags with my cards. I was outraged, but I knew that I had to stay calm and collected in order to take legal action against them. I hired a lawyer and sued them for credit card fraud. They were shocked that I had taken such a drastic step, and they couldn't believe that I had the audacity to sue them. They thought that they were entitled to my money, and they were furious that I had taken it away from them. However, justice was on my side. The evidence was clear, and the court ruled in my favor. Plus, during investigation, they found out that Daniel was responsible for several frauds, while Donna was responsible for spending most of the stolen money. They didn't have money to pay for settlement, so they had to go to jail. After the legal battle was over, I knew that it was time for me to move on with my life. I decided to move to another city to advance my career. It was a fresh start for me, and I was excited to begin a new chapter in my life. Despite my newfound hope and dreams, Jim still tried to contact me and accuse me of ruining his family. But I knew that I had done nothing wrong. I had simply stood up for myself and refused to be a victim any longer. I blocked his number and never had to talk to him again. I found a cozy apartment and started to explore the city. I made new friends and started to build a new life for myself. I took up new hobbies and immersed myself in local culture. As time went by, I realized that I was happier than I had been in a long time, and I knew that I deserved better than the life that I had been living before.